The Martian by Andy Weir, 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James, The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. All these works of literature are now quite well known, some on the border of being cultural phenomena. Despite their disparate subject matter, all four of these works intersect at a meaningful point. They were all initially self-published. These, along with a plethora of other success stories, serve as inspiration for a multitude of aspiring authors who have chosen to self-publish their work. Our podcast, Homespun Script, is dedicated to telling their stories, talking with them about their work, and listening to their experiences as self-published authors. The goal is simple: provide indie and self-published authors with a platform to promote themselves and their work. While providing this space hopefully does help, we encourage all our listeners to further support these authors by writing positive and engaging reviews of their work on a platform we all know of but will remain nameless. Doing so is a simple, easy, and direct way of supporting them. And now, on to our guest. Hello and welcome to the podcast Homespun Script. My guest today is Wayne M. Bailey, author of the science fiction novel The Mars Migration. Published in 2022, the novel was nominated for an Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2023. Now, this is the part where I'd usually give a very short summary of the book, but Wayne, I think it might be more appropriate if we talk about that when we discuss the actual title a little bit later. So, again, thank you for joining me. Wayne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I'm from the UK, in the West Midlands, and I work in electrical contracting by day. I'm a sci-fi geek, and by 40 years old, I suddenly decided out of the blue I was going to write a book, and here I am.
Fantastic. So, what brought you to science fiction?
I think growing up in the early 80s, especially with all the science fiction films that we had, your Back to the Futures, your Star Wars, your Close Encounters, that kind of thing. Also having a UFO experience of my own. My dad had one too when he was younger. I think all these things just sent me down the path. I've just been really interested in what else is out there. So obviously when I got to 40 years old, decided I was going to write a book. It seemed the appropriate subject. Write what you like and what you know.
So you and your father both had UFO experiences.
Separate ones, yeah.
Okay, similar. Or maybe could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so my dad's, unfortunately he's passed now, but my dad's was a lot better than mine. He had a really close encounter. It was an area of Walsall where we lived, and he came out of the house down the street a little bit. It was early morning, probably 6 a.m. He was waiting for his lift to work, and he said this round disc craft literally came down to the rooftops. It spread the entire width of the street, and he described it as coloured lights going around the edges, shining down onto the road and bouncing back up. And he saw an old lady on the opposite side of the street. She saw it as well. They were both frozen to the spot, and then it left, and he went home, tried to get my mum out of bed. And that was his experience. That's all I can remember from him telling me growing up. Mm-hmm. Mine was, it would have been the very late 80s or the start of the 90s. And me and my friends were playing out. And it looked like a helicopter up in the night sky. That's the kind of height I would describe it as, helicopter height, as if it was a police helicopter. Mm-hmm. But it was stationary in the sky. And I would describe it as looking like a double-decker bus, so 2 rows of lights in the sky, just white lights. It stayed there for a few minutes. We had enough time to sing God Save the Queen. That's what me and my friend thought was the appropriate thing to do, not knowing what else to do. And then once we'd done that, it kind of tilted a little bit in the sky and zipped off really fast. And that was mine.
Interesting. So geographically speaking, were these two experiences like vaguely in the same area or just completely different parts of the
I
UK?
didn't think about it when I was little. I think your attention span is a lot less when you're younger.
Oh, yeah.
But they were literally, when I think about it now and look at the maps, they were literally 2 streets apart.
Oh, okay.
It's quite crazy. I've tried visiting since, but they've not come back,
I can't
unfortunately.
say I blame you. Yeah. Right. So this might actually seg fairly well into our next question. So having a UFO experience, reading your book, I see maybe a parallel there, or at least a similarity in the first chapter, even. But
Yeah.
let's just back up a little bit without comparing your work to others. Let's just introduce your book for now. What other books on the bookshelf might you see? Let me rephrase that. Considering the kind of person or the kind of reader who would enjoy the Mars migration, what other books might you see on their bookshelf?
I would say, as the old saying goes, write what you would like to read. So, based it on that, other people that like science fiction or maybe even young adult adventure style books, maybe a bit of Stranger Things, a
Oh,
bit of
okay.
Harry Potter,
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars novels, even Stephen King. I think there's a little bit of everything all rolled into one, but those
Mm-hmm.
kind of books, I think people would appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because it very much is told from the perspective of a younger generation, at least people who are a lot younger than both you and I. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't really describe it as a coming of age story. But still,
No, that's right. Yeah, I think coming of age stories influenced it because I like to read that
oh,
kind
okay.
of thing myself. Stephen King type coming of age stories like
Mm-hmm.
It, I love. Under the Dome, where I've obviously been influenced by that. You can see a little bit of that in the story, maybe without saying that I stole anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people who like that kind of thing would really enjoy it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So let's talk about the title, The Mars Migration. It does give us sort of an idea of what to expect in the novel. Can maybe talk a bit about how the book itself came to be and specifically the title?
Yeah, the title, that's a really funny story, really.
Mm-hmm.
Going back a few years, probably 4 or 5 years, even before I even had the idea that I was going to write a book, I used to give a friend a lift to work and back every day, and we became really close. And some of our random conversations one day, it was about, I don't know if you remember, but there was a South Park episode where the Washington Redskins, and I'll bear with me, the trademark ran out on the Washington Redskins brand. So the kids in South Park trademarked it and became rich because everyone wanted this trademark back.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of thinking, what could I trademark or what website could I get that might be the next big thing and get us rich? It was a really random conversation. Brexit was quite big at the time. I thought, oh, right, Brexit.com. I looked that up. That was already taken
Yeah,
off.
good luck getting that.
Yeah. But I don't know why. The thing that came to me, the next big thing, Mars migration, the migration of people to Mars. I know might have to wait a few years for that to be really big thing, but that's what came to me. So I looked and it was available for a really low fee.
No
So I
kidding.
bought it. I thought, why not? MarsMigration.com, that became mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously deciding to write a science fiction story, Mars wove itself into the story, and Mars Migration just became a working title at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing better came along, so I just stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems as though the title then you chose before you even thought of the book.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Really
Okay.
random.
Yeah. Well, given that you own the domain marsmigration.com, it definitely sounds like the kind of thing Elon Musk might contact you on, given his current concerns. Yeah, a little surprised that hasn't happened already. He seems like the type of person to buy up everything he could like that.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm. Well, good luck with that. I hope it works out for you in that
Thank you.
way. It was pretty intuitive, and so you self-published the book.
Yes.
Why choose to self-publish as opposed to traditional publishing?
I think patience was the key to that, really. I spent a year writing the original story. Once I decided I wanted to write something, I had all these random thoughts in my head. So I decided to write something. I spent a year writing it. Got to the end of that, and I got it beta read by some beta readers.
Mm-hmm.
It was crap. So completely rewrote it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it edited.
Mm-hmm.
Completely rewrote it again. Not because it was crap this time, simply because the editor might have highlighted something, suggested something,
Mm-hmm.
or with it at the back of my mind just came up with extra things.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking 3 years now.
Wow.
Now I'd got all my files, I'd got it typeset, I'd got my cover. Right, now do we start querying for agents or publishers? But by this time my patience was running out. I just wanted to get my story out there, that's all I wanted. So that was the key really. It was, could I spend it could take how long, 2 or 3 years before it got picked up by an agency or a publisher?
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to get it out there, so that was the route I took.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's completely understandable. So did you do all the editing yourself? I know you said you had beta readers. I want to talk about that in a moment, but yeah, you did all the editing yourself.
No, I
Okay.
paid a lady. She was actually from Texas, and she proofread it for me, and then proofread it again. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what was the process with getting beta readers?
I just Googled and looked for websites on writing, and there were 3 that came up. One of them refused to read it. One of them read it. One said she was going to read it, and she just read the first chapter. And then the third one, she read it all the way through, and she gave me this great report.
Oh, okay.
That it was almost like she'd edited it for me. She was like, "This doesn't work. This works. You need to get your tone of voices right. You need to get your points of view right." Because I was completely new to writing at the time, so I had a lot to learn still. So with that first report, basically, I mean, it was crap. I can admit that it was crap. So yeah, it just needed a lot of work. So I had a lot to learn. I had to teach myself how to write. I'd watch videos, I'd read books on writing, and I tried to get it to as finished a product as I could. Once I'd got it edited and typeset and everything, it went through a lot of cycles.
Yeah. Well, I've heard quite often that the phrase "writing starts with editing," or the real writing starts with editing and revising.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's
and
a long
process.
Yeah, we're all our own worst critics. So it surprises me to hear. It surprises me a little bit to hear you referring to earlier versions as crap, because I thought it was quite well polished and quite well written in many ways. And I've actually read it twice now. I read it once over the summer when we first contacted one another, and again in preparation for the podcast. And the second time around, I noticed quite a few didetails here and there that I thought, oh, hey, I didn't notice that the first time.
Did you?
And yeah, I think it's a mark of a good book when you can read it again and notice things that you didn't notice the first time.
Oh, brilliant.
Let's talk about the cover art. I didn't understand it at first, and then when I finished the novel, I'm like, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, you would think that.
Yeah. So what was the process for, first of all, getting an artist for the cover and choosing what was going to be on it? And how did that all work for you?
Yeah, so I came to the end of the book. Once I'd got to the end, once I'd get it edited, I'd got it typeset. I still didn't really know what the title was going to be. I still had this working title, which obviously worked and was very lucky. But I needed to get the cover done as well. I didn't know what was going to be on the cover. Again, a lot of Googling, a lot of YouTubing went into, right, what should a cover have? It's got to give something away about the story, but it's not got to contain too much where it might be confusing or give the story away. But what I did was, once I sat down and started thinking about it, it did it itself. I put Mars on there, the black sky, the sphere, the hands, Amber and Daniel's hands.
Yep.
But like you say, until you're ready, you wouldn't actually know what any of that was. But so I sketched it out. I probably made the cover designer's job a bit easy for him, really. I sketched it out, and what you see is a very rough version of what you see now.
Oh.
So I've Googled cover designers, looked on Fiverr. Fiverr's a great resource, but there's some amazing people, and there's some that are just starting off, so you've got to be a bit careful finding the right one for you. I didn't use Fiverr in the end. I found Sean from Flintlock Covers.
Okay.
I liked his designs. I was happy with his price. I was happy with his website. So I sent him my rough sketch, and I said, this is my rough design. I want you to make it professional and good.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've got in my head is a vintage science fiction cover. So Arthur C. Clarke,
Yeah.
Ursula K. Le Guin,
Yeah.
Asimov, all these really vintage covers. And I even, in my head, when I imagined my book cover, I even imagined it as like a book you would pick up from a yard sale, really tatty science fiction vintage. That's what I had in my head.
Okay.
And he did a good job.
Yeah. I didn't. Okay, you said vintage, and I'm thinking the pulp covers from the magazines in like the very early 20th century and mid 20th century. And I think the cover design that you have definitely goes a level beyond that.
Oh, lovely.
And one thing I did notice about it is that whoever did the cover absolutely read the book. And your explanation brings that home a lot, because so often you read a book and then look at the cover and think, did this cover artist even read the book? And apparently it makes intuitive sense to me as well, but cover design is so much of a book, and one of probably like 2 or 3 most important things when marketing it. And it struck me. I really like the cover.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah.
And some people didn't like it. I put it in a Facebook group, and some people didn't, but I can't please everybody.
Yeah, well, they just have bad taste, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of detail in it, and it's a lot, I will say it is more interesting and engaging after reading the book, because it's another little puzzle to figure out. Like, I recognize that. So enjoyed that.
Yeah, once you get to the end of the book, you'll see it, and you'll see the cover. Yeah.
Yep. And even partly in the beginning with the spheres and the 2 hands around the spheres. That was a good addition.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So the central plot engine of the novel is pretty clear. We have these 2 spheres, which are the size of bowling balls, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, small bowling balls, that's it.
Landing on the Earth, one in the UK and one in Canada, and they freeze time. And 2 young adults, are they both teenagers? I know Daniel's 17. No, I think it's Daniel. I don't know why. I've read the book twice. I keep wanting to call him David.
Oh.
So if I say David, no, it's always Daniel. Daniel and Amber and Amber is a teenager too, right?
Yeah, 19.
19, okay. And they're not affected by the time stop. And as any teenagers will do, they go to the spheres and, out of teenage curiosity, touch them. What else are you going to do as a teenager, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about this idea of the time stop?
Yeah. A lot of the book wrote itself. Once I started writing, it just came out. But once when I started it, we had I'll say now, we had Amber and Daniel. While I was writing it, I thought, if I'm going to have 2 youngish adult characters, why not make them my kids? So Amber and Daniel are actually my kids.
Oh, okay.
So we had Amber and Daniel. The spheres, how I came up with that, I'd just be staring out my back window at the back of my house, and I've got a lawn, and I've got the school. Imagine Daniel's chapter. And I'd often think to myself, obviously having a UFO experience years ago, I'd just stand looking out my back door and think, I'd love to see another UFO. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could just stand here looking at my glass back panel in the door and see another craft come down or something come down? And it just evolved from obviously a UFO type craft to just a device, the sphere, and that landing in the school. And how would that sphere make contact with humans? Would everybody just find it, or do we make it a story where it makes contact with one person in particular? So to protect itself, it sends out a field, a protective field, and that's why everybody is frozen within this field. So that's where that came from. The sphere just evolved on its own, really. I'll be honest, it just evolved on its own.
One thing I noticed in my second read of the book is it makes a lot more sense now when you tell me that Daniel and Amber are based on your children, because the way, especially Dan, and maybe I'm a guy, so I can relate a little bit more to to how Daniel reacts, but
Yeah.
he reacts exactly the way I would think a 17-year-old would react in this
I'm glad
situation.
you said that.
Yeah, just
I'm glad you said that.
yeah, he saying, huh, what's going on?
Yeah.
And time doesn't really stop, does it? It slows down.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he walks around his house a little bit. He tries to turn on the TV, and as we all do when the remote doesn't work to turn on the TV, he presses the button a few times,
Yeah. And a bit harder.
and then he tries to turn on. Yeah, and harder, because that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But everyone has that reaction.
Yeah.
And he picks up the flashlight or the torch. The torch is a flashlight, I assume. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's right.
and it doesn't work, so he shakes it. Shaking it's going to make it work, and it eventually goes on. And then he goes down to, or he walks toward the school to where he thinks the sphere landed. Walks past his friend's house, and instantly he thinks, "Oh, my bros. Maybe I should get my bros. This could be a bro adventure." And I'm like, "Yep, okay. This is sort of a strange acceptance of the situation, but more curiosity." Yeah.
What was really important for me to do was to, like you say, I'm really glad you said that would be the natural reaction of a teenager, because it was really important for me to try and keep the story in the real world, especially the Earth sections. Didn't want them to be too over the top or cartoonish. I really wanted to write, what would a 17-year-old lad do or think? And he'd be like, "Oh shit, what's this?" So I really wanted to try and keep it in. That was really important. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think there might have been a temptation to make Daniel a hero, and he's already punching above his weight class in terms of the responsibilities he has once he touches the sphere and gets transported to a much different location, talking with much different people, which we'll get to in a moment. But he's not like an Ender from Ender's Game. He's not this child savant who can do anything. He's just like a normal 17-year-old dude who's reacting to everything like a normal 17-year-old kid would. And I thought that, and I think Amber is the same. It has expressed similar concerns, because one of the first things she's concerned about is, "Oh, time stop. Is my mom okay?" And I'm a caregiver in some way, and she's worried about those around her. And so, yeah, they're very human, and I appreciated the fact that they weren't superhuman.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. That was it. That was important to do. Obviously, using Amber and Daniel as my references for my main characters, it probably made life easier for me in writing, because I could easily imagine, right, what would they think or what would they do. So I think that helped, basing them on real characters, real people.
Yeah, I thought it worked. It's one thing I sort of noticed it my first time through, but I really noticed it the second time through, especially in the first couple chapters with Daniel.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I spent entirely too much time rereading those, because it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Also, let's talk a little bit about the reactions of some of the secondary characters, because once Amber and Daniel touch the spheres, they get transported somewhere else. But the area of effect of the time stop, or time slowdown, shall we say, that is instigated by the spheres, it's limited. And so people who are still on Earth, hope I'm not giving away too much there,
No, it's
but
okay.
there are some people who are affected by it and some people who aren't. And the people who are affected by it are inside this kind of dome, I would guess. And everyone very quickly figures out where the line is. And so we have Mick, who is a detective, I would think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's the detective in England. And then we have the well-off family of, I think one of them is a lawyer. They're both lawyers in Canada?
The mom was a lawyer.
Mom's a lawyer, okay.
The dad was in commercial property, wasn't he?
Okay, yeah, it's something. Yeah, I couldn't quite remember, but their reactions to the time stop were interesting as well, and how the local societies in general react. Tell me a little bit more about Mick. There's only 1 or 2 chapters on him, but I thought he was a pretty likable character.
He was, yeah. Do you know what? I'm probably skipping a little bit here, but if you were going to ask me who was my favourite character to write, it's really weird. Even though Amber and Daniel are my kids and my 2 sort of principal characters, Mick was actually my favourite to write.
Oh.
I really liked writing Mick. I don't know why. Whether it was because I was maybe under less pressure to write Mick. But yeah, I loved writing Mick, because he was, like you say, he was facing on the outside of this anomaly. He was on the outside looking in, and he first discovers it, and he starts to see some of the effects that it has on, right, what's this thing that's gone up? What's the effect of it? What's it going to do?
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I really enjoyed writing Mick. And then you've got, like you say, the family in Canada, and
Hmm.
they're similar. They're just on the boundary of it as well.
Hmm.
And young Tommy, he gets stuck in it, doesn't he?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that leads on to its own little story. But yeah,
Hmm. It kind of cracked me up noticing Stevie, I think, is the father,
yes,
and his instant reaction, despite the fact that there's all this crazy stuff going on and there are emergencies and first responder crews all over the place. He sees his son stuck, and his reaction is to call 911, call the police. And I mean, what's he thinking? Is he thinking he's really going to get through? Those lines are going to be completely flooded. And
yeah,
yeah, but it is what likely a parent would do.
yeah, yeah. Why not?
So, and tell me if I'm flirting a bit too close to spoiler territory here. If I ever do that, let me know. And I will tell you
Okay,
right now, I'm not going to say anything about the last 25% of the book, because that's where it's like, okay, everything is falling into place right now. So, but we do find out fairly early on when Daniel and Amber touch the spheres that they are in a much different place, as in not Earth or Earth as we know it, after their respective encounters with the spheres. And on my second read through, I noticed much more in the way of like small details when they end up in this new place. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you crafted this environment of what we're just for now going to call an alien world.
hmm. So I've always had an interest in black holes.
Hmm.
We're not skating too close to it. I think it's
Okay.
that's on the front cover as well, isn't it? The black hole. So I've always had
Oh,
an interest in black hole.
I didn't notice that until now, and I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed to say that. Yeah.
So, what would first of all, could something survive on the other side of a black hole? As we move from reality into back into science fiction, I suppose, then my science fiction brain was like, well, why couldn't there be another civilization at the other side of a black hole? We don't know.
Hmm.
So it's this civilization that have sent out the spheres. So Amber and Daniel end up in the place where the spheres came from,
Hmm.
which is a civilization at the other side of the black hole.
Hmm.
So yeah, my once I started writing the story, that kind of crafted itself that
Hmm.
this civilization might have holding areas where people arriving through their sphere technology would end up. It's like a holding area, and then the story goes
Hmm.
on from there. What's this other civilization doing? Why have they sent out the spheres? Who
Hmm.
are they? And that's explored from there.
Yeah. They're not entirely good people. Not entirely bad, but not entirely good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few details I noticed in that. Let's see. All the aliens have gray skin. That's a
Yes.
commonality, and they're all wearing gray clothing, at least on Prime. And the planet they land
Yes.
on, that Daniel Amber find themselves on, is called Prime. And there's
Yes.
another planet called Secondary. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's just talk about Prime for now.
Yeah.
Everyone has gray skin, and they're all wearing gray clothes.
Yeah. The thinking was, if they're in a system where they haven't got a star or a
Hmm.
sun to give them much light, but what they've got is the rear end of this black hole, which
Hmm.
would give off some light and radiation.
Hmm.
So that's the thinking. If they haven't got a sun to give them the vitamins that the skin needs, then they would possibly be
Hmm.
paler skin, grey skin,
Hmm.
and not much colour in their clothes.
Hmm.
Because in my weird brain, if there's not light outside, there's not flowers and colours, and
Oh, sure.
so yeah, that's why the grey skin and the grey clothes a bit
Hmm.
drab, a bit dull.
So it's natural
That was the thinking.
adaptation to the environment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I also noticed when Daniel and Amber are in the quote unquote holding cells, a lot of stone stuff here. And I
Yeah.
noticed in one paragraph, there was, let's see, da, 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 a stone wall, a stone panel, stone crafted knife and fork, and a stone below a microwave shaped indentation. And I'm guessing the stonework here factors into the overall aesthetic that you're trying to construct for this world.
That's right, yeah. And that leads on to another question to do with the names of the people. So
Yeah.
in,
Yeah. A lot of V's going on.
a lot of these, yeah. Okay, so a little bit about that.
Oh, great.
My weird logic. What my thinking was if if a planet, and we've got to be careful here, if a planet was to end up going through the black hole and it's a scorched, barren wasteland, and then life was to start again from the beginning, in essence,
Mhm.
evolution in my head would be fairly similar to what we had on Earth.
Mhm.
So they might invent fire using fur skins and bows and arrows, and inventing the wheel, and then pyramids, and then ships.
Mhm.
So a stage in evolution that I picked for finding names and characters was they're actually Norse names. All the names that begin with V that you saw, they're actually
Oh,
Norse
Norse
names.
names.
So, so
Oh,
you've got a similar evolution to what happened on Earth, and you've got these Norse names, and they've kind of got to the Norse stage in evolution, but their technology has moved on a bit faster than ours.
yeah.
So you've got kind of the old stone effect work, but then you've
Oh,
got
okay.
the touches of technology,
Hmm. Yeah.
weapons and transport, and
Yeah. And I suppose in terms of natural resources that are available
yeah,
out of which to construct things,
yeah,
you can have more stone than, say, wood or anything colorful. Yeah.
yeah,
That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense. So, how does this, and again, forgive me if I'm going too far into spoiler territory here, but how do you see that as impacting the political situation on Prime? Or do
Mainly
the
doesn't
two
it?
go hand in hand, or are they separate?
No, it went hand in hand. What I was thinking was if their technology has moved on a bit faster, they would have surely a certain arrogance around them.
Mhm.
So, in developing their characters, that was one of the first things that I was trying to address was that they'd be have an arrogance around them. So
Mhm.
that was my thinking with that.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, because the society on Prime seems
Yeah,
very hierarchical.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but the grayness kind of gave the impression of identity being leveled, and no
yeah,
one really having a distinct identity because everyone wears the same clothes and
yeah,
yeah, or the same color.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. A couple little details here. The guard Karen, I thought was quite funny. I don't think it plays a substantial. It's not a substantial plot point, but it was a nice little inclusion there. The
Yeah, I wanted to give Daniel a cheeky sense of humour.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely something a 17-year-old would do. Is nickname the overambitious guard Karen.
yeah,
All right, so it turns out, and I'll edit this out if it goes too far. But these spheres that have been sent out by the people on Prime,
yeah.
um, a little vague in their purpose. Um, uh, how would you explain the logic that's being used by the denizens of Prime in sending out these spheres?
Again, in my weird head, this civilization that are trapped in the dark space behind a black hole with
Mhm.
a lack of light, colour. Part of them must, yeah, we're going a little bit into spoiler territory, but basically, they're aware of the universe that's outside of the black hole,
Mhm.
which would have stars and
Mhm.
lights and more colors and just be more comfortable because of having stars around planets around stars.
Mhm.
So their civilization would want to try and make contact with the light space again.
Mhm.
So they have these sphere manufacturing facilities and the returns
Mhm.
facilities. The idea being that because they're at the rear of a black hole, to send a starship back through the black hole would just be impossible because it would just get
Mhm.
crushed.
Mhm.
So these spheres being small and metallic, and if
Mhm.
they sent at a certain speed through the rear of the black hole, then that small device might be able to make it through to the light universe, away from the
Mhm.
dark space.
Mhm.
So that they would send these out to collect people from around the known universe
Mhm.
and bring them into the dark space so that they could learn from them, ask them questions, and see
Mhm.
how being by a star affects their skin and their cells.
Mhm.
So that's the it's to collect people basically.
Yeah,
That was my logic.
yeah, they're Shanghaiing people mainly out of curiosity.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
And at first, I thought it was something different at first, but I'm going to give it, that's going to get into spoiler territory. But it's Amber who realizes this, I think, at the end. And she says, oh, they're just taking us here as a curiosity.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that sets off something in Amber. She gets really mad about that. And we see that anger come out later, which is an awesome scene, by the way, but I'm not gonna go in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Amber and the host for Amber and David, who's seeing them around Prime, Valya.
Volya.
Yeah. Another Norse influenced name, I assume.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
He seems. What do you think his motivation is, or
I think Volya's conflicted.
Yeah.
I think he serves the director, his right hand man. He's honor bound to the director of the Dark Space, but also he sees these young Earthlings that are sensitive and upset, and learns of a possible way that they could be helped home. But because of his loyalties, he's very conflicted. But he sees the right way.
Yeah, he seems to have a strong moral center, but
Yeah.
Also, I like the way you had him be sort of a vehicle for describing what the society is like, because it is very hierarchical, and he's fairly up in the hierarchy. And when he walks around with Daniel and Amber in tow, people make room for him, like get out of Valya's way. Do you want to talk about Secondary at all, or are we going to give a little bit too much away there?
I'll say that Secondary is another planet within the Dark Space that made it through the black hole eons ago. In the Dark Space, there would be a sort of a train of planets that survived their journey through the black hole. So you've got Primary and Secondary; they're the main two. Secondary is at a state of war with Primary, just because of differences of opinion, let's say. So you've got characters on Secondary that don't necessarily agree with the way the director of the Dark Space is running the Dark Space Union.
Yeah, there's a politically volatile situation there.
Yeah.
I think if we talk any more about that, we're going to start giving things away.
Yeah.
Even though that's one of the really interesting parts of the book is how that whole political situation unfolds and what's going on there. So, what were some of your favorite parts of the novel to write? And what are your favorite parts of the novel in general? And I think those may be two separate questions. I'm not sure.
Definitely Mick in Shropshire in the UK. He's just outside of the sphere, the anomaly, and obviously he's there when this thing first goes up. But then they're pushed back as the army come in and take over because it's way above a normal policeman's pay grade. What's happening to the Earth and to the UK and Canada? So, but then later in the story, Mick revisits a few days later, doesn't he? The outside of the anomaly and the army encampment, and I love that scene.
Yeah,
he kind of makes friends with somebody there, and he visibly watches the army experimenting on this thing, trying to figure out what can they do and can't do with the outside of this boundary, and they're trying to figure out who caused it, what its purpose is. Obviously, nobody in the UK has any idea where these things have come from. I really enjoyed writing Mick's character.
Yeah, I like that scene as well, because he's definitely motivated just by his sense of curiosity. He wants to know what's going on, but he also knows that maybe it's not quite my place to be here, so I'm going to worm my way in, and then I'm going to observe. And he's very evidently, he has a lot more street smarts than a lot of the other people there, which I appreciated as well.
And how far can he push his luck trying to get access to this thing?
Yeah. So that one. What are some of your other favorite scenes, or some of the other favorite parts of the book to write?
I like the scenes that we would struggle to get into because of spoilers, but like you say, Amber has a really cool scene, and Volya does as well towards the end. I like seeing how far Amber and Daniel can push things on Prime in their quest to get home. I think that's really interesting. I recently reread it myself leading up to this podcast, actually, because I haven't actually read it since 3 years ago when I was, like you say, 2022. So nearly a year and a half. I've definitely not touched it for. So it was interesting to reread it myself and see some of those scenes again.
Your book was nominated for an Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2023. That's really pretty impressive for a self-published book. Not only does it indicate that it's of a high quality, but also somehow you managed to get word of it out there or get it noticed enough such that someone read it who was in charge of making the nominations and it got on the list. So congratulations on that. How did that was there a process behind that, or how did that happen?
What happened was, once I'd finished the book and obviously got a science fiction book on my hands, I looked into any award that I might be able to get my book into, just to be able to get it out there, as any self-published author trying to market it would. And the Arthur C. Clarke Awards at the time were accepting submissions. So you pay a fee and you send your book to them, and then it ended up on the almost 100 books to be in the Arthur C. Clarke Awards. But then from that long list, which my book was on, then they narrow it down to the short list. I never expected to win that, to be honest. Right. But yeah, my book was on the long list, but it didn't make it down to the short list.
Well, I would say, given the sheer volume of science fiction work that comes out, being on the long list is something to be proud of in and of itself.
I love Arthur C. Clarke myself. 2001 is one of my favourite films and books. So just to be announced with Arthur C. Clarke's name in the title, I was so grateful just to be on that long list.
Congratulations once again on that. But
Thank you.
Arthur C. Clarke's a favorite of mine as well. So I also think your book would adapt quite well to a motion picture. And I did this little exercise in my first interview as well. And it's a really fun exercise. So I'm going to leave one of these characters out because mentioning the character, I think, might give away a couple spoilers. But there are 4 characters who I thought I started thinking of what actor or actress would play these characters.
Okay.
And so how about Daniel? Who do you think would be a good actor to play Daniel? I had a hard time with this because I'm old, I'm 50, and I really I'm not aware of many young actors and actresses.
Yeah, I'm the same.
So I'm going to cheat on this one. I thought Michael J. Fox from the 80s would be very good for Daniel.
Yeah.
Sort of in that Back to Future type role, but maybe with a little bit more of an edge.
Maybe Tom Holland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's...
he's kind of got that young Marty McFly look as well. He keeps being linked with possible remakes, doesn't he? That obviously is not going to happen, but he's the obvious choice for Marty, I think. So, yeah, maybe Tom Holland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that too. That's great. How about Amber?
Maybe the young lady that plays Beverly Marsh in It.
Okay, I don't know that. I can do a quick Google search on that.
Yeah, I can't think of her name either. Okay. She's been in another couple of things as well since.
Okay. I thought Kristen Dunst.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, from the Spider-Man years. Yeah, I thought...
the younger Kirsten.
The potential for a fiery personality in some way. Yeah.
I like it.
How about Mick?
Mick. Stellan Skarsgård.
Oh, good choice. Okay. Yeah. I can see that as well. I chose, oh boy, I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm second guessing myself. No, I'm not.
Who?
Mickey O'Rourke.
Nice.
Yeah. Who, and I second guessed myself there because, wait, is it the same? But yeah, sort of that grizzled, hard, take no nonsense attitude that he has. Mickey O'Rourke might be a little bit too surly for the role, but I think he might do well.
I think we've gone for similar generations, haven't we?
Yeah, we are, I think. How about Valia?
Oh, wow. Valia. I have no idea. I've never been asked this. You've
I didn't mean to surprise you with it. But
you surprised me there.
Okay, sorry. I chose Charles Dance.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
That's
and
a good one. Yeah.
mostly because of the role he played in the miniseries adaptation of Childhood's End. He did the voice of Corellin,
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
fantastic with that.
He's got
And
that classical feel to him and to the right generation as well. I like that.
I think he
Yeah.
might be
He
have to
could
be
command some authority.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit less villainous than he usually is.
Yeah.
But yeah, just his voice and the way he delivers his lines is the way I kind of pictured Valia
Yeah.
delivering his lines. So, what advice would you give other self-published authors who are maybe either in the work in progress stage of things, or maybe gauging different options for publishing their work and getting it out to the public?
If you've got time on your hands, I would definitely get to the end of it. You don't have to spend any money on it, but if you want it to look good and read well, then definitely got to get the best editor that you can afford.
Mm-hmm.
The editor and the cover are definitely the most expensive parts.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the ratio of what you can afford to the best one that you can find.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hardest part, is the editing and the cover. But definitely, if you've got time on your hands, definitely spend some time querying for agents, because that will take you down the traditional publishing route.
Mm-hmm.
Self-publishing does give you a lot of control. That's quite cool as well. When you want to release a book, it's nice to have the control of the cover, and anything afterwards. You do have to market it yourself. That's once the book's written, that's only part of the journey. Then the marketing is a different thing altogether. You have to spend so much money on marketing to try and get the word out there.
Yeah. I can't imagine how laborious and difficult that might be to market a book.
Yeah, it's constant.
That's one reason I have this podcast, is to do that kind of thing. But anyway, so in terms of marketing, Wayne, it's been wonderful talking to you. This has been a great interview. I really enjoyed your book. I enjoyed it just as much the second time I read it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you liked it. Thank you very much.
And to everyone, I highly recommend it. So again, the title is The Mars Migration, and I know we can find it on Kindle Unlimited. Is there a hardcover or a paper physical copy as well that people can get?
Yeah, there's a paperback as well, which any bookshop that you like to use would be able to order it. You can obviously order it on Amazon, but I like to push indie bookshops if I can help it. I've got a couple within distance of my house that have supported me really well with the book, and that's very much appreciated. So yeah, if you can, we've got to try and keep these indie bookshops alive. So if you've got an indie bookshop by you, order it through them.
Great. Yeah, I will recommend that as well.
Yeah.
And fully support that ideology. So Wayne, is there anything else you want to say about the book before we call it a day?
I'm hoping. I've started work on a second. I'm thinking if I'm going to do a second, I might as well do a trilogy, Back to the Future style. So eventually, keep following me, and I'll hopefully have some news and hopefully do it justice. Okay,
so are we talking a sequel here, or another novel sort of in the same, vaguely the same universe as The Mars Migration?
Direct sequels. I like the thought of, and a lot of people have asked me as well, which is nice. What are the characters up to a year after the events? What's happened to so-and-so? What's happened to so-and-so? And some might not be in it. Some might have passed on, but some might just crave that adventure back again. So I like to think that we'll carry on right where we left off.
Yeah, I would guess that Mick has his nose in the center of everything.
Yeah,
in some way. I certainly hope so. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, Wayne, once again, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. Where can people find you on social media? Just search Mars Migration. You'll find me. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. Come find me. Say hello. Yeah, fantastic. If you could just email me the links to all those, I'll put them in the show notes. Will do. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Wonderful. Wayne, thanks again, and we'll stay in contact. My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. Have a good day. You too, mate.